Hi, I'm Amy Stasiewicz, and welcome to the Minutes. Thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on the Minutes for the week of May 25th. This is the City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at standing committee meetings and city council meetings. You can find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel and our website, thunderbay.ca/theminutes. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. This week, the Finance and Administration Standing Committee met on Tuesday, May 26th. We'll go over the main takeaways from the Standing Committee meeting. Then I'll sit down with Kristyn Lovato-Day, Policy and Research Analyst for Corporate Services, to talk more about the 2027 budget process and the new incident response policy. So let's get started. Like all meetings, the night began with a land acknowledgement, and then right into the agenda. The first report of administration is a request to approve external funding for capital. This report is about making sure the city can properly use funding it's already received from outside sources. Throughout the year, the city secures funding from a variety of sources, things like grants, donations, and agreements with organizations. Because these funds often come in after the annual budget is approved, they need a formal process to be added in. In 2025, those contributions came from a range of sources, like revenue from tree chipping through Thunder Bay Pulp and Paper, scrap metal recycling, and donations to places like the Conservatory and T-Baytel Multiplex. There were also significant grants from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, as well as support from provincial and federal partners. These funds are already being put to work across the city. There's also a major investment, over at $1.6 million, in expanding and restoring our urban tree canopy, helping neighborhoods and improve local ecosystems. Along the waterfront, projects like wetland restoration at Pool 6 are improving habitat, strengthening shorelines, and creating more resilient green spaces for the future. It's important to note that these projects are funded entirely through external sources, meaning there's no additional cost to taxpayers. Standing Committee endorsed the report, and it will now go to Council in the upcoming weeks. Next was an update on the city's first quarterly financial forecast for 2026. Each quarter, administration reviews how revenues and expenses are tracking compared to the approved budget, and then estimates where things are expected to land by the year end. Since this is an early snapshot covering up to March 31st, it's still primarily an assessment. Overall, the city's finances are tracking as expected, with no major concerns at this time. Several departments like long-term care, community strategies, engineering and operations, and fleet services are all showing small positive variances. On the cost side, there are a few things being watched closely, like fuel prices and certain chemical costs. But as of right now, there isn't any major impact. Looking at agencies, boards, and commissions, there are no significant variances identified at this time. At this stage, the city remains on track financially, with stable operations. And of course, as the year progresses, these forecasts will be updated, so stay tuned. The next report of administration was focused on the city's 2027 budget calendar. Administration is asking for approval of the budget timeline, basically when council will review and finalize the 2027 operating budget and the 2027 to 2028 capital budget. Because this is an election year, administration isn't setting a new budget direction just yet. Instead, they'll follow the city's long-range financial plan, which aims to keep tax increases in line with inflation, starting at a minimum of 3%. The proposed schedule starts in early January of 2027, with budget reviews happening through late January and early February, and final approval is set for February 16th, 2027. There's a continued focus on long-term planning, including a 2-year capital budget, and making sure most investments go towards maintaining existing infrastructure. There was a lengthy discussion on infrastructure funding, specifically about roads and potholes. As part of that discussion, a referral was put forward and passed. Administration will report back on June 30th to the Finance and Administration Standing Committee. They will provide options for enhanced road work in the 2027-2028 capital budget. In the end, the 2027 budget calendar was not approved and will be revisited on the June 30th meeting. The next report of administration was from Corporate Services on supply management. There are two main reasons for the update. First, it's about keeping up with the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. The agreement sets dollar thresholds that decide how the city buys goods, services, and construction. Those thresholds have gone up for 2026, so the city needs to adjust its own limits to match. These changes also update rules, like when council approval is needed, when negotiation is allowed, and what happens in emergencies. Second, there's new provincial legislation and a new procurement directive. This piece is really about supporting Ontario businesses and strengthening local supply chains. It shifts procurement from just focusing on costs to also considering where goods and services come from. When the city is buying fleet vehicles, it needs to prioritize made in Ontario options, or at least Ontario-based suppliers if local options aren't available or feasible. For infrastructure projects, there's also a new transparency piece. Vendors will have to outline where their materials and services are sourced by submitting a domestic supply chain plan. To support this, the bylaw is being updated to allow for provincial preferences in procurement decisions, ensure compliance with the new rules, and strengthen documentation so there's clear record of how decisions are made. There's no direct financial impact. It's really about staying aligned, compliant, and transparent. Standing Committee endorsed the report, and it will go to City Council for final approval in the near future. The final report of administration to the Finance and Administration Standing Committee was about the new incident response policy, which focuses on safety in city spaces. This policy is about creating a clearer, more consistent way to respond when issues come up in public spaces, whether that's city facilities, transit, or other municipal areas. There have been ongoing concerns about safety and behavior, and in response, the city is rolling out a mobile safety and security response team. This new policy gives that team and other staff guidance on how to respond. Their approach is to start with de-escalation. The focus is on calming situations, encouraging cooperation, and keeping spaces safe and accessible. Enforcement is still an option, but it's meant to be fair, balanced, and used when necessary. The policy also improves consistency around things like trespass notices, with clearer steps for repeat situations while still allowing some flexibility depending on the circumstances. The second piece of the report is repealing an outdated bylaw. There's no direct financial impact with this report since it's already been supported through the 2026 budget. Overall, it's about making sure the city has a consistent and balanced approach to safety for both staff and community members. In the end, the Standing Committee endorsed the report, and Council will make the final decision in the upcoming weeks. Finally, there were two sign variance applications, one for Scotiabank on Arthur Street and one for Marks on Main Street. These applications are required because of a sign bylaw from 1992 stating if your sign is too big, then you need Council's approval to move ahead. The committee endorsed the applications, and it will now go to Council for final approval. Okay, that's a wrap on the recap for the Finance and Administration Standing Committee meeting. Next up, I'll be joined by today's guest to talk more about the upcoming 2027 budget process and what's involved in the new incident response policy. I'm here in the Minute Studio with Kristyn Lovato-Day, Policy and Research Analyst for Corporate Services, to take a closer look at some of the topics from this week's Finance and Administration Standing Committee meeting, including the budget process and the Mobile Safety and Security Response Pilot Program. Hi, Kristyn. Thanks for stopping by.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, so hard to believe we're already talking about the city's 2027 budget, but here we are. Good to, things are always in motion.
Happens early.
Yeah. Okay, so what's different about this year's budget process, especially with the upcoming election in October?
So normally, the last couple of years, we've been bringing the budget, the capital budget, to council in November for ratification in December. And this year, because our council will be brand new, we've proposed to standing committee so far that we will be bringing both the capital and the operating budget together at one time in January. So with that, there'll be one meeting with public deliberations about the capital budget, and then we have a couple other deliberation meetings after that about the operating budget, and they'll both be ratified. Both be scheduled to be ratified on the same day on February 16th.
Okay, and yes, because the new group, whoever they are, start in November. Yes. And then it's a bit of a learning process for a little bit. Yeah. Okay, and you mentioned the capital and operating budget. Capital budget, this is going into the second year, right?
Yes. So because we now have an approved 2-year capital budget, the council will have to reaffirm 2027's capital budget and then approve 2028. So that's what we'll be bringing in January for the capital budget, and then the operating budget will be for 2027.
Okay. And we talked a bit about in the past about the long-range financial plan. Can you just explain a bit what this is?
Yeah, so the long-range financial plan sets out a 10-year plan for us to monitor different financial metrics and make sure that we're on the right track. It gives more transparency and clarity to the public about what our policies are on financial management. And one of those things is in years like this year where we can't necessarily bring a mandate to council to approve because there will be an entirely new council next year. We have a plan that's already set in place where we have a 3% tax levy increase for operating and a 5% for capital, so that we have some sort of policy in place that we can fall back on there where we can't have that council approval.
Right. Just another plug. Did your department recently win an award for something?
We did, yeah. So we were recently the recipient of the GFOA's Excellence in Financial Reporting. This is the second year in a row, so we are super excited about that.
Yeah, I just had to, do a little shout out there.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Okay, so switching gears, can you explain a bit about the new incident response policy that was brought up at the committee meeting this week?
For sure. So when we were doing some research about the mobile safety and security response pilot that was recently approved by council through the budget process, one of the things that we realized, we already had a procedure for staff to be able to use trespass notices to kind of curb disruptive behavior and threatening situations. But we realized that we needed a more transparent and consistent approach across the corporation. So we're bringing this policy to council for approval to give the public and our staff more clarity, transparency, to show the guidelines on how we will deal with incidents. So it's not just for the mobile safety security response team, it's for all staff, and it covers any public facility or property. So if it's not a building, like if it's just city property, including buses and at transit stops and at the terminals as well. So we felt in response to the calls for more safety for our employees, more safety for the public, that it was important to have our response and how we're expecting staff to behave to be written in a policy so that it's much more clear and gives more guidelines.
Yeah, good idea. And what feedback did you hear from the community in shaping this policy?
So we've actually spoken, especially in shaping the program for the mobile safety and security response team. We've heard a lot about safety incidents in our, especially transit, and I know council has heard quite a bit about those happening in transit. And so having a clearer way to handle them and a triaged process, and noting that de-escalation is always the priority, we felt was really important. So that's where this policy comes in.
Okay. And you talked about the response team. So there is a new pilot called the Mobile Safety and Security Response Team.
Yep.
So can you explain a little bit more of what this is and why this was created?
So this is a team of municipal law enforcement officers. So they'll be with the MES division. And they will be specifically mobile in teams of two, where they can be called out to address any incidents, to support our transit drivers, to support any of our facility areas, kind of have a presence in the community, and to build relationships and meet people and be able to talk to people and we're doing it's a harm reduction and human rights approach. So we want to be able to help people get to services they need and make those contacts.
Right. Sounds like a great program. I know there are other programs in place around the city. There's one with Thunder Bay Police. So how is the city ran one a little bit? How is it different?
So there's actually a whole bunch of them, and there's a few in the city. So they all have different escalation points, and they all have different focuses. So there's the STAR program, which is the one run through the paramedics, our EMS there. Right. And they do mental health calls, and then they'll come out for a bunch of different medical calls and things to mitigate some of those calls to go to the hospital. We have the Ambassador program, which I believe is soon to be renamed, but that one has also been approved through the 2026 budget, and that's through the community safety and well-being area. That one is going to have some staff wandering around in our BIA areas, our downtown core areas, and right. Also doing those triaging things and de-escalation if there are incidents and things like that. And then on top of that, if you need a little bit more enforcement, that would be the Mobile Safety and Security Team, which we're calling the SSR team. And so trying to not have to get police involved. And then if it does escalate to where you need police, it could become violent. It could right. Be something that is a concern. Then we would call in the police in that instance.
Right. Yeah. A lot about community safety, obviously. But yeah. Okay, so when are you hoping this team will be in place? And what are the next steps, like with council and approval and everything?
So this team, we're hoping for in the summer, in the next couple of months, that it'll be up and running. We don't anticipate having to go back to council or standing committee yet with anything. The program is well underway for planning. And it has already been approved. So the policy was kind of the final step to make sure that we had all of our bases covered there.
Right. Okay. So over the summer, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Is there anything else that about the new policy or about the budget that we didn't cover today that you want to share?
Sure. There is the response policy, the incident response policy, will be going back to council for final approval on June 23rd. As for the budget, we will be at Thunder Bay Talks on June 4th. So come and have a chat with us. We have a couple of interactive displays and to get your feedback. We'll also have, we'll pop up in a bunch of different locations over the summer and over the next few months, even during election time, so that we can gather some more feedback ahead of the budget. And there will be the regular surveys will be available as well when the budget becomes public in January.
Okay, amazing. I feel like January, I don't want to say it, but it's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, which is so sad because it's not even summer yet.
I know. I'm sorry to even have said that. Okay, so that's a wrap. Thanks for the updates, Kristyn, and thanks for taking time to come and chat with me today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
That's it for this week's episode of The Minutes. A big thank you to Kristyn Lovato-Day, Policy and Research Analyst for Corporate Services, for joining us. If you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, visit thunderbay.ca/council. You can catch The Minutes every week wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube or on our website at thunderbay.ca/theminutes. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. And before I let you go, a quick reminder to mark your calendars for Thursday, June 4th for Thunder Bay Talks, which is happening from 6 to 8 p.m. at the 55 Plus Center. This is a casual, family-friendly community event ran by the city where you can ask questions and give your feedback to city staff all across the organization. Topics like the Smart Growth Action Plan, municipal elections, and the budget will be a main focus. There will be free food and refreshments, music, kid activities like bouncy castles and face painting, and lots of prizes. This event is open to everyone, so we hope to see you there on June 4th. I'm Amy. Thanks again for listening to The Minutes, and have a great week.